Yeah, and when you start previewing this NFL draft, you look at all of the mock drafts from various places, whether it's ESPN, NFL.com, The Athletic. The common theme is that there is only one quarterback. I think I've only seen one mock draft, and that would have been from Field Yates from ESPN.com, that has another quarterback, and that is the Steelers selecting Ty Simpson from Alabama with their pick at, I believe, 11 or something like that, and they take him, and they draft there, and eventually...
Who'd you say?
The Steelers.
The Steelers pick in the first round. Pittsburgh's 21.
21. I knew there was a 1 in there somewhere.
Miami's at 11.
Miami's at 11. So they pick him at 21, and they then have him sit for a year behind Aaron Rodgers, would be the philosophy, or 2 years, however long Aaron Rodgers wants to play, and then he would start after that because Mike McCarthy is good at developing quarterbacks. Now, to me, that would be very high, selecting a quarterback that you're going to sit for 2 years. Ty Simpson, I watched every snap of Ty Simpson play at Alabama. He's not a day one quarterback. I think in any other draft, Ty Simpson wouldn't be a day 3 quarterback. If he was coming out next year when you have a ton of quarterbacks and very good quarterbacks, he would definitely be a day 3. I think that Fernando Mendoza would probably be a day 2, maybe a high day 3 quarterback if this was next year's draft. So I think that when we get to the combine, the smoke you're going to start to see might not necessarily be that the Raiders are going to take Fernando Mendoza number 1. We're set on taking Fernando Mendoza 1. We're not taking any meetings. I think it might be that the Raiders are listening to everything, and that Fernando Mendoza might not be the consensus number 1 overall pick. And that's just doing their due diligence. Because if you're the Raiders, why do you need just because you need a quarterback doesn't mean you have to take this quarterback. Just because you need one to start, like you have Geno Smith, like he's not a franchise quarterback, but he's in your building.
He's not a good quarterback.
But are we sold on Fernando Mendoza? If Fernando Mendoza were to be a day 3 quarterback next year, are we sold on Fernando Mendoza as the number 1 pick?
You know, I think that's the way we're being led to believe, is that Mendoza is the best quarterback coming out of this draft.
Okay.
I do kind of, there is an element of what you're bringing up, and if you want to join us, you can call us at 310-840-4910. I get what you're saying. What if the Raiders see traits in someone else that they know they can get in the second or the third round, and then they don't have to use that number 1 pick on a quarterback? Could they put the smoke screen out there like they're open for business to trade Mendoza to a team that does need a quarterback? The Jets and the Cardinals are sitting right behind the Raiders. Could they put it out there and play those two teams, knowing that perhaps they really want Ty Simpson or Carson Beck or Garrett Nessmeyer or Drew Aller? I don't think that's realistic. I don't think any of those guys are better than Mendoza. But you're right. Next week, we may start to see some smoke with, they would maybe be willing to trade because they do think there's value or there's someone who could surprise people as a quarterback in the NFL. I think the one thing that I struggle with that is when you look at the overall class, this is a down class for quarterbacks. This isn't what we saw last year or even the year before that great class from 2023. This is not that type of style class, and I think what a lot of people really think is that Fernando Mendoza might be your only starter out of this group, and that everyone else is looking at career backup-like situations. And that's talking about Carson Beck or Nessmeyer or Simpson. Like, I could see that being the case from this draft class, which changes some of that conversation. And if you are the Raiders, and if that was a real perspective to take heading into the combine and the draft, how are you getting your quarterback if you don't take Fernando Mendoza? If you're not taking him number 1, and you say we're going to build up with other things, we're going to fix the offensive line, and you can patch it together 1 year with Geno Smith, how are you fixing it long term? Well, I think this is your spot to get a guy, and you hope that Mendoza turns into Jared Goff.
Yeah.
And that's your quarterback for the next 10 to 12 years. And a part of it is like he's not super athletic to the point that he's dazzling everyone with his gifts athletically.
Mm-hmm.
But if you keep him upright, he's a quarterback who could be absolutely serviceable in the right situation if you fix everything else around him.
You said that they need to convince other teams that they're interested in Ty Simpson or Carson Beck or these other quarterbacks. Why? Say that why even take, if you want to trade down, take Arvell Reese, the linebacker out of Ohio State. Take an offensive tackle.
That's not what I mean. What I mean is like internally, if they think that there is potential with one of these other quarterbacks, they don't have to let the league know this, but they could just say, all right, we're open for business for one because we'll move back and we'll take a better player in the first round with moving back because we know we can grab a quarterback later who we think has potential. That's what I'm saying.
Sign Malik Willis.
You could do that as well.
Give up a 4th-round pick for Kyler Murray and pay him for a year and then cut him after next year if you're going to be bad. Like, if you're going to be bad and if you're going to be, like, if you're Tom Brady, you are arguably one of the best, if not the best quarterbacks of all time. Are you looking at Fernando Mendoza and saying that's the guy for the next 10 to 15 years? Or are you looking at Arch Manning next year or any of the other guys from next year and saying, no, that's the guy for the next 10 to 15 years? And you're saying to yourself, guys, we just need to be bad for one more year and we can have that guy. Like, if I'm Tom Brady, I'm not tying myself to someone to 10 to 15 years that I'm not fully convinced on just because he's there.
Well, I'm guessing that Tom Brady probably sees a little of himself in Mendoza.
Of course he does.
I mean, right? Like,
of course he does.
He wasn't a top-level quarterback coming into college. He bounced around. Like, it was a late bloomer situation in the college game.
As soon as Mendoza took the keeper in the national championship game and left across for the touchdown, Tom Brady left the stadium.
I see what you're saying, but also something tells me that Brady likes that Fernando Mendoza is a gamer. Like, I'm guessing Brady really likes him, if I had to guess. And we'll see if that's the report that comes out, and we'll see if the Raiders end up selecting Mendoza with the number 1 pick. Mm-hmm. But I think when you say, does Tom Brady then see next year's draft class as the spot? Like, what if they move back or they trade this year's number 1 pick for a number 1 pick next season?
Yeah.
That could be a possibility, too, if you're looking at it. If we had to lay down betting on what we think will actually happen, I would put the most amount of chips down on the Raiders taking Mendoza 1.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think that's what they're going to do.
For sure.
And then they'll get that star player drafted in the top 15 or 20 based on trading Max Crosby. I think they'll trade Max Crosby. They'll get a pick in the top 20. It'll either be the Cowboys pick at 20 or the Buccaneers at 15. And they will be able to get that defensive player that you're mentioning or someone on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. And that's how they're going to jumpstart this and build from the ground up with a new coaching staff and like a new era of Raiders football. As Bleck Abdalla, we're talking to you about the NFL Combine next week. You know, the other main storylines is obviously it's not just the number 1 pick with the Raiders. It's what will happen with Max Crosby. And I think we will get some information next week on the teams who are interested, the teams that are going to be offering packages for Max Crosby, and whether or not the Raiders are open for business. The last time the Raiders spoke on the record was at the press conferences with Clint Kubiak being introduced to the media. Kubiak and the front office and Mark Davis, the owner, they all said that they want Max Crosby to be in a Raiders helmet. They want him to be with Vegas. We'll see if that's true. We'll see what's floated out there next week on whether or not Max Crosby is really an option on the trade market for other teams.
Yeah, because it was last reported by Jay Glazer the week of the Super Bowl that Crosby wants out. And when you send a player home the final week of the season and say that he's injured, and then he's posting on Instagram that he's playing basketball and jumping on a trampoline, and he wants to play, and it's obvious that you're tanking for the number 1 pick and you don't want your best player out there, your game wrecker that can basically take over games and win games for you, he wants out. And that's what Jay Glazer's reporting, and I trust that. And look, he's being a good soldier. He's being a good teammate. He was there for the press conference. He was there working out. Kubiak said he was there and said that Crosby was working out and doing all the right things and met him and talked to him. And Crosby can do all of the right stuff. But the fact of the matter is, I'm going to believe Jay Glazer's report that Max Crosby wants out, and it would be in the best interest for the Raiders to get the most picks and start fresh. Because what is more valuable to your franchise quarterback if you're going to take Fernando Mendoza? 1 edge rusher when you're still going to be pretty bad, or 2 or 3 new offensive linemen? It's 2 or 3 new offensive linemen to protect Fernando Mendoza.
It's Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports, previewing the NFL Combine next week. Kicks off in Indy. Earlier this week, Dan Graziano was on ESPN television because if we're keeping our eyes on Max Crosby, there's also a pass rusher in Cincinnati who could be on the move in Trey Hendrickson. This is what Dan Graziano from ESPN had to say, linking Hendrickson to the Colts.
Trey Hendrickson to the Colts, I believe it makes a lot of sense. They've been looking for edge rush help for a number of years. The defensive coordinator for the Colts is Lou Anarumo, who coached Trey Hendrickson some of his best years in Cincinnati. It makes a lot of sense. It can be a short-term deal for a veteran player who might have the kind of impact the Colts are looking for. Colts have not won their division. They've gone the longest of any team in their division without winning it. It has been quite a drought for Indianapolis. We know they had a great start to last year and then fell apart. They want to make sure and finish it off. Trey Hendrickson, if he gets back healthy and to the kind of player he was in Cincinnati, can certainly be a guy that helps them do that.
So there was Dan Graziano on ESPN television linking Trey Hendrickson to the Colts. If there are teams like the Cowboys, the Bears, the Buccaneers that miss out on Max Crosby, would those teams be interested and go after Trey Hendrickson if that well dries up? And I think Indy has been a team that's been rumored for Hendrickson now for a couple weeks. And so I think that Trey Hendrickson's situation is also a big storyline to keep our eyes on as we head to the NFL Combine next week.
Yeah, and all it takes is money as a free agent. You don't have to give up any picks like you would for Max Crosby. Max Crosby already has a contract, too, so you don't have to negotiate or do anything like that. But with Trey Hendrickson, if you're drawing that connection, I think it's just going to also come down to who's offering the most money. If he wants to be the highest paid pass rusher, because that's was part of the rumors last year, is that he wanted to be one of the highest paid pass rushers, but he's also one of the older guys that's up there. And, you know, he was injured for a lot of last year. I believe he only played in 7 games last year. So he's coming off of injury, but the last 2 years he was healthy. He had 17 and a half sacks in both of those years. So when Trey Hendrickson is fully healthy, he is one of the best pass rushers in the game. The question is going to be health. The question is going to be age for Trey Hendrickson, and how much is someone willing to give a Trey Hendrickson coming off of injury?
Along with Hendrickson, I think another item to keep our eyes on for the Combine next week will be what the rumors and the conversations around Malik Willis will be. He's the number 1 quarterback on the market who's a free agent who, if you need a quarterback, you're at the store shopping for quarterbacks. You walk in, and it looks like everything's picked over. You know, you see the footage when there's like a hurricane coming into town, and you see the shopping. Like, people go to the grocery store and there's no toilet paper and all the shelves are empty. And there you got Malik Willis sitting there on the shelf. He's the only one left. So if you need a quarterback in this offseason, there's not a lot of options. It's like what is it with whenever they pick over all the water. And, like, Dasani is still sitting there on the shelf. You've seen those clips, right?
Yeah.
Like, when there's a natural disaster and then, like, Ice Mountain's gone, the Fiji's gone, all the big brands that people...
Just Dasani.
And then Dasani is there. Or what's the other one? Something blue?
Man. The it's
Deshaun
not,
Blue.
not Glacier Blue or something like that.
it's out there too, and no one buys that brand of water, bottled water.
Yeah.
So you walk in and you're shopping for a quarterback, and Malik Willis is just sitting there. So I saw this. This is from NFL.com. This is a list of 8 players who could be misvalued in 2026.
Okay.
The number 1 player, players who could be overpriced, Malik Willis.
Oh.
It's true. It's true.
I agree with you because he's the only guy left, essentially. I mean, we all assume Daniel Jones is going to go back to the Colts coming off of injury. Aaron Rodgers is going to go back to the Steelers because of the relationship with Mike McCarthy. He's not going to go play for the Cardinals if they trade Kyler Murray. He might go to the Vikings. We'll see. That's an option for Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be Malik Willis. He's the only, and he can take his pick of the Jets, the Cardinals, and we'll see what the Dolphins do with Tua. He's going to have potentially three teams bidding over him.
Everyone else in town has gotten all their emergency supplies, and you're the last one to the grocery store, and you come walking in, and every shelf is empty, and Malik Willis is just sitting there.
Deja blue.
Deja blue. That I knew it was something blue. Deja blue.
Deja blue.
Or Dasani.
Yeah.
They're the only water that's left when there's a natural disaster. It's the last one.
I'll take the crab juice.
Yes, the crab juice.